The year is 1783. The American Revolutionary War has just ended, and the United States stands on the precipice of a new era. The ink on the Treaty of Paris is barely dry, and the young nation is eager to chart its course in the world. The United States, newly independent after a grueling war against Great Britain, stands at a crossroads. The war has left the nation both exhausted and exhilarated, its people filled with a sense of pride and possibility. The streets of colonial towns buzz with the energy of newfound freedom, and the American flag waves proudly in the wind. The Treaty of Paris has secured their freedom, stretching their borders west to the Mississippi River. This vast expanse of land represents both opportunity and challenge, a blank canvas upon which the new nation can paint its future. The treaty is a symbol of their hard-won independence, a document that enshrines their right to self-determination. Yet, a sense of unease lingers. The war may be over, but the future is uncertain. Colonial leaders gather in meetings, their faces etched with concern. In the streets, people discuss the challenges that lie ahead, their conversations tinged with both hope and apprehension. The northern border remains a point of vulnerability, a land still under the dominion of the Crown. British soldiers patrol the border, a stark reminder that the old enemy is still very much a presence. The proximity of British Canada is a source of anxiety, a potential threat to the fledgling republic. Whispers of expansion, of securing their newfound liberty by claiming the vast territories of Canada, begin to circulate in the halls of power. Political leaders debate the merits of such a bold move, their discussions filled with both ambition and caution. In the hallways, people whisper about the possibilities, their imaginations fired by the prospect of new lands and new opportunities. Independence, hard-won and fiercely defended, had come at a great cost. The battlefields of the Revolutionary War are still fresh in the minds of the American people, the sacrifices of their soldiers a poignant reminder of the price of freedom. The nation is determined to honor their legacy, to build a future worthy of their struggle. The fledgling nation, however, possessed a newfound confidence. The leaders of the revolution, having faced and overcome immense challenges, are now filled with a sense of purpose and determination. The American flag, a symbol of their unity and resolve, waves proudly in the background as they discuss the future. Its leaders, forged in the fires of revolution, looked north with ambitious eyes. The vast, untamed lands of Canada represent both a challenge and an opportunity, a chance to secure their borders and expand their influence. The leaders of the new nation are determined to seize this opportunity, to build a future that is both secure and prosperous. Canada, vast and resource-rich, represented more than just land. It was a strategic prize, a way to ensure the survival of their fledgling republic. The resources of Canada, from its fertile lands to its abundant natural resources, are seen as a key to the nation's future prosperity. It was a strategic prize, a way to ensure the survival of their fledgling republic. The leaders of the new nation are determined to secure this prize, to build a future that is both secure and prosperous. The strategic importance of Canada with its vast resources and strategic location is clear to all. The echoes of musket fire had barely faded when the whispers began. On to Canada. The cry, at first a murmur among veterans of the Revolution, soon found its way into taverns and newspapers. The idea of expanding northward, of securing their borders and building a future that is both secure and prosperous, begins to take root. The cry, at first a murmur among veterans of the Revolution, soon found its way into taverns and newspapers. The idea of expanding northward, of securing their borders and building a future that is both secure and prosperous, begins to take root. The discussions in taverns and the headlines in newspapers reflect the growing sentiment among the American people. The idea took root, fueled by a potent mix of ambition and fear. The fear of a British resurgence, the desire to push the old enemy further away, and the allure of vast, untamed lands all played their part. The discussions among colonial leaders and the heated debates in taverns reflect the growing determination to secure their future. Fear of a British resurgence, a desire to push the old enemy further away, and the allure of vast, untamed lands all played their part. The leaders of the new nation are determined to seize this opportunity, to build a future that is both secure and prosperous. The strategic importance of Canada with its vast resources and strategic location is clear to all. The preparations begin, the plans are laid, and the ambition of a new nation takes shape. For some, the motivation stemmed from a deep desire for security. The British, despite their defeat, still maintained a strong and influential presence in Canada. Their forts dotted the landscape, serving as a constant reminder of their lingering power and influence. A preemptive strike, they argued, was necessary to secure the nation's hard-won independence and future. Others saw an opportunity for expansion, a chance to fulfill America's manifest destiny and grow. The vast forests and fertile lands of Canada held immense economic potential for growth. Fur traders envisioned a monopoly on the lucrative fur trade, which was highly profitable, while land speculators dreamed of carving out vast estates from the wilderness and making fortunes. For many ordinary citizens, however, the prospect of conquering Canada was met with a mixture of apprehension and indifference. They had just emerged from a long and bloody conflict, weary and worn. The thought of sending their sons off to fight another war, this time against a vast and unforgiving land, filled them with dread and fear. Yet, the allure of territorial expansion, fueled by nationalist fervor and the promise of economic prosperity, proved too strong to resist. The political machinery, once set in motion, was difficult to stop or slow down. The decision to invade Canada, while not universally popular, gathered momentum with each passing day and week. In the spring of 1784, the drums of war beat once more. The echoes of the Revolutionary War had barely faded, yet the call to arms resonated through the newly formed states, stirring the hearts of men who had tasted both victory and the bitter cost of freedom. Across the fledgling nation, men answered the call to arms with a sense of duty and a renewed fervor. They gathered in town squares and meeting halls, driven by a shared vision of a united and secure continent. Veterans of the Revolution, their uniforms worn but their spirit unbroken, joined ranks with eager recruits. These seasoned warriors, who had once fought for independence, now stood shoulder to shoulder with young men eager to etch their names in the annals of history. The camaraderie among them was palpable, a brotherhood forged in the crucible of war. Their destination was the sprawling, untamed wilderness of Canada. This vast and rugged land represented both a strategic prize and a formidable challenge. The American forces knew that controlling Canada could tip the balance of power in North America. The American strategy hinged on a two-pronged assault, a bold and ambitious plan that required precise coordination and unwavering resolve. Military leaders gathered to discuss the intricate details, poring over maps and plotting the routes that would lead them to their objectives. In the east, General Benedict Arnold, his name forever tarnished by his betrayal at West Point, but his military skills still undeniable, was tasked with capturing the strategically vital port city of Halifax. This port was a linchpin in the British supply chain, and its capture would deal a significant blow to British operations in the region. In the west, General Richard Montgomery, a hero of the earlier invasion of Canada, was to lead a force down the Lake Champlain corridor towards the towering fortress of Quebec City. This fortress, perched on the cliffs overlooking the St. Lawrence River, was a symbol of British dominance and a key strategic point. The challenges were immense. The American forces faced not only the might of the British military, but also the harsh realities of the Canadian wilderness. Dense forests, treacherous rivers, and rugged terrain tested their endurance and resolve at every turn. The vast distances, coupled with the limited infrastructure of the time, made supplying the troops a logistical nightmare. Supply lines stretched thin, and every mile forward was a testament to the ingenuity and determination of the American forces. Wagons creaked under the weight of supplies, while boats laden with provisions navigated treacherous rivers. The soldiers relied on these lifelines, knowing that their success depended on the steady flow of food, ammunition, and medical supplies. The soldiers, many of them farmers and shopkeepers just months before, braved unforgiving terrain and unpredictable weather. They marched through rain and snow, their resolve hardening with each step. The harsh conditions tested their mettle, but they pressed on, driven by a sense of purpose. Despite the hardships, morale remained relatively high. Around campfires, they shared stories of home and dreams of victory. The camaraderie and shared sense of mission kept their spirits buoyed, even in the face of adversity. The memory of their recent victory over the British fueled their determination. They had faced a formidable enemy and emerged victorious, and this triumph gave them confidence in their ability to succeed once more. They believed they were fighting for a righteous cause, for the security and prosperity of their young nation. This belief was a powerful motivator, inspiring them to endure hardships and make sacrifices for the greater good. Little did they know that the challenges they faced paled in comparison to the trials that lay ahead. The path to victory was fraught with peril, and the true test of their resolve was yet to come. As they marched into the unknown, they carried with them the hopes and dreams of a nation, determined to secure a future for generations to come.
Sir, no, sir!
As summer faded into autumn, the American advance began to falter. The initial momentum that had carried them through the warmer months started to wane. The soldiers, who had been full of vigor and hope, now faced the harsh reality of a changing season. The lush green forests that had provided cover and resources were now transforming into a landscape of decay and desolation. The weather, their most formidable enemy, turned against them. Torrential rains and fierce winds battered the troops, making every step a struggle. The once firm ground turned into a treacherous mire, and the soldiers found themselves battling not just the British, but the very elements themselves. The rain-soaked battlefield became a quagmire, where every movement was a test of endurance and willpower. Autumn rains turned roads into muddy quagmires, slowing the supply lines to a crawl. Supply wagons, essential for the army's sustenance, became mired in the thick mud, often requiring hours of labor to move just a few feet. The soldiers, already exhausted from battle, now had to expend their dwindling energy on freeing these vital lifelines. The logistical nightmare compounded their woes, as food, ammunition, and medical supplies became increasingly scarce. The once vibrant foliage of the forests transformed into a sea of decay, mirroring the dwindling hopes of the invading army. The brilliant reds and golds of autumn leaves gave way to a blanket of brown and gray, a stark reminder of the harsh winter to come. The soldiers trudged through this desolate landscape, their spirits dampened by the relentless march of time and the ever-present specter of defeat. The nature of the conflict differed greatly from the open battles of the Revolution. Instead of engaging in grand, decisive clashes, the Americans found themselves embroiled in a series of grueling skirmishes and sieges. The enemy was no longer a distant line of redcoats, but a hidden force entrenched in fortified positions, ready to strike from the shadows. Instead of facing the British in pitched battles on open ground, the Americans found themselves bogged down in sieges. These prolonged engagements tested their resolve and resources to the limit. The fortified cities, with their high walls and well-defended positions, seemed almost impregnable. The Americans had to adapt to this new form of warfare, learning the art of siegecraft on the fly. Cities like Montreal and Quebec, fortified and heavily defended, presented daunting obstacles. The intricate network of walls, bastions, and redoubts made any direct assault a perilous endeavor. The defenders, well-versed in the art of defense, used every advantage to repel the invaders. The Americans had to rely on ingenuity and perseverance, often constructing elaborate siege works under constant threat of attack. The defenders, bolstered by loyalist militias and indigenous allies, fought with the tenacity of those defending their homeland. These diverse forces, united by a common cause, proved to be formidable adversaries. The indigenous warriors, with their intimate knowledge of the land, conducted guerrilla raids that harassed and demoralized the American troops. The loyalist militias, driven by a fierce loyalty to the crown, fought with a determination that matched the Americans' own. Winter descended upon the battlefields with a vengeance. The once muddy roads now froze solid, but the cold brought its own set of challenges. The soldiers, already weakened by months of campaigning, now faced the brutal reality of winter warfare. The snow-covered landscape, while beautiful, was a deadly adversary, sapping their strength and morale. Temperatures plummeted, and heavy snowfall blanketed the land. The biting cold seeped into the very bones of the soldiers, making even the simplest tasks a Herculean effort. The winter storms, with their howling winds and blinding snow, turned the battlefield into a frozen wasteland. Visibility was reduced to mere feet, and the soldiers had to rely on their instincts and training to navigate this treacherous terrain. The American soldiers, ill-equipped for the harsh conditions, huddled in makeshift shelters, their thin uniforms offering little protection from the biting wind. The lack of proper winter gear was a glaring oversight, and the soldiers paid the price. They wrapped themselves in whatever they could find, but it was never enough. The cold was a constant, unrelenting enemy, sapping their strength and will to fight. Frostbite and disease ravaged their ranks, claiming more lives than the enemy's bullets. The medical facilities, already strained by the demands of war, were overwhelmed by the influx of frostbite and disease victims. The soldiers, many of whom had never experienced such cold, were unprepared for the toll it would take on their bodies. Limbs blackened and died, and the constant threat of infection loomed over every camp. The supply lines, already stretched thin, ground to a halt. The snow and ice made transportation nearly impossible, and the soldiers were forced to ration their dwindling supplies. Every meal became a precious commodity, and the lack of ammunition meant that every shot had to count. The logistical challenges of winter warfare were immense, and the American army struggled to adapt. Food and ammunition ran dangerously low. The soldiers, already weakened by the cold and disease, now faced the very real threat of starvation. The lack of supplies was a constant source of anxiety, and the soldiers had to make do with whatever they could scavenge. The once plentiful resources of the land were now buried under a blanket of snow, and the soldiers had to rely on their ingenuity to survive. The dream of a swift and decisive victory vanished amidst the snowdrifts. The soldiers, once full of hope and determination, now found themselves in a desperate struggle for survival. The harsh reality of winter warfare had shattered their illusions, and the once clear path to victory was now obscured by the relentless snow. Every step forward was a battle, and the soldiers had to dig deep into their reserves of strength and courage to keep going. The Americans, once confident and full of purpose, now found themselves fighting for survival. The harsh conditions had taken their toll, and the soldiers were pushed to their limits. The once cohesive and determined force was now a collection of individuals, each struggling to survive in the face of overwhelming odds. The dream of victory seemed distant, and the soldiers had to find new reasons to keep fighting. Their invasion, once full of promise, was on the brink of disaster. The soldiers, who had once marched with confidence and purpose, now found themselves in a desperate retreat. The harsh winter had turned their campaign into a nightmare, and the soldiers had to summon every ounce of strength and determination to survive. The dream of victory was now a distant memory, and the soldiers had to focus on the immediate goal of survival.